Hello everybody. Hi. Y'all, November the 1st. Welcome back to my house, everybody. Today we are getting back to the basics. And I mean like beginner level raw edge applique. And we're making a really fun Christmas trivet, so I hope you follow along. The link for this pattern is down in the description box. I'm going to give it a minute for everybody to join in, whoever's following us live. The good news, if you're live, we're going to be hanging out for a minute because I have not traced applique templates or nothing. We're going to walk from the very beginning of this trivet. And if you're watching on the replay, you have the awesome feature of skipping around, right? You can skip to all the different parts if you're making this trivet and watching on the replay, right? You can skip around. Hi, everybody. It's so great to see y'all. I have my windows open, so hopefully there's not a lot of background noise, but it's a little on the warmer side today. It's warmer than it has been, but there's a nice breeze blowing. How's everybody doing? Hello, hello. So I've made two of these trivets. The first one I'm going to show you because I think it's important to remember, like when you're trying to come up with a pattern or a design, or you're trying to figure out how to make something at home, right? Sometimes you need to go back to the drawing board, right? So this is the very first one I made, which is still super cute, right? I even fussy cut the fabric for the circles in the ornament. Isn't that cute? But I really thought that these circles were too small for that space, and my hanger looked a little funny, right? So I went back to the drawing board and I revised it, and I made this one. See how much better the circles look bigger in that space? And I increased the size of the hanger parts of the applique, so see that? And it fills in that space much better. So this is the pattern we are working on. This is my beginner one, right? My first one. I put that off to the side. And again, you can get this pattern down in the description box. Cheryl said, which scan and cut do you have? I have the SDX 325. That's the one I have. All of the different models pretty much will do the same thing mine does, minus some features, but cutting the fabric, all that stuff, it does the same thing. Lots of buffering on your end, Mimsy. I wonder if it's my internet because of the cloudy day. How's everybody else? Am I buffering for everybody, or is it just me? Give me a second, I'll pull myself up. It just might be my cloudy internet, y'all.
94%.
Anitra says she's good on her end. Good, 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 good. You're fine here. Okay, we're gonna keep going. It could possibly be my internet, but hopefully we're good. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to come down to my drawing board, right? Or my working table here. We're going to take a look at this pattern. It's just a small little bit of prep work we need to do to get a tracing pattern, right? So let's just take a look at that. All right, so this pattern has, of course, all the things you need to prep to get ready for this trivet. And y'all, I was doing a bunch of canning yesterday and this morning. I was been super busy fulfilling some orders and stuff. So I've only prepped. I have not cut out my applique or nothing. We're going to do all of that right here in today's video. So you have some written instructions, right? And then you're going to see 4 pages that look like this. You're going to cut these out. There are gluing tabs so you can paste these 4 pages together once you cut them out. But that's going to give you the true size pattern for this trivet. I need to slow down for a second. I was like 20 minutes early, so I started scrolling some videos on my phone, and when I looked up, it was 1:58, and I was like, oh no! So then I was rushing to get things together. The time just flew by. That was the fastest 20 minutes I've ever seen. All right, so of course you'll want to cut those 4 pages out and paste them together, right? And when you do, you're going to cut out the ornament on the outside line, and it's going to give you this true to size, right? Ornament pattern. And we're going to be using this here in just a minute. But on this 4th page, I don't want you to toss this in the trash like when you're trimming and getting rid of all the extra pieces. There are some applique pieces on this page. We're going to trace and cut 3 of these. That's part of the hanger. And here are your other applique shapes. These have been mirror imaged for tracing with fusibles like HEATNBOND LITE, any of your favorite fusibles that you like to use, right? So a lot of times when I come and I do little teachings, little videos like this, I've already done the prep work. And in the last year or so, I've brought you along as I cut out the pieces on my scan and cut. We've done that a couple times, right? But it's been a hot minute since I traced applique on the HEATNBOND and cut it out. But you know what? I'm having new people watch along each week, and some of you are extremely new. So I thought this week, I'm not going to rush to cut out all these pieces before the video. Let's go back to the basics, and let's trace these applique pieces and cut them out by hand. So I thought that would be fun, right? So that's what we're doing. Darlene made more pickles yesterday. I made pickled beets all day yesterday, Darlene. It was a beet pickle factory in my house yesterday. It looked like some bad homicides had taken place in my kitchen with those beets. And let me just tell you before I start tracing, it was about 20 pounds of beets, and they were all about this size. Do you know how long after I boiled them that it took to peel that many beets? It took about 3 hours. They were that big. I didn't count them, but I bet you there was 200 of them. At least 200. All right, so tracing applique shapes with HEATNBOND LITE. That's what I have here, right? I've already mirror imaged your tracing files for you. If you're doing a pattern and your tracing templates have not been mirror imaged, you'll need to flip your paper over, right? But these are mirror imaged, so we can trace with them right side up. So I'm just going to go through and trace these as we chit chat, right? And I'm tracing by hand, and when I'm nervous, my hands are even extra shaky. So don't look too close. Now, tracing these templates work pretty good even without using a light pad or a window, right? You can pretty much see through the HEATNBOND. Now my bird's been quiet all day. He's going to start acting up, y'all. Mary Jo, the skins did not just slide off. And I tried and I tried and I tried, and they would not just slide off. Like, I don't know if I didn't, they were fork tender, but the skins were not sliding off. Not on these. That would have been lovely if they did. I might have to get up, y'all, and go cover the bird up. All right, so I'm going to start tracing. Can y'all hear the bird? He has been quiet all day. My good friends Jane and Betty came over the other day, and the bird was quite entertaining. He actually wasn't annoying. He was very entertaining for them. All right, so there's one. Like he knows, as soon as I turn on the live, he's gonna start. He did this the other night. We were doing a Patreon workshop. He started the same thing, had been quiet all day. Yep, it would have been lovely if the beets just cooperated, but nope, I had to peel them by hand. All right, so there's 3 of those. Then we're gonna just jump right down here. I'm gonna trace the little hanger. I'm pretty sure you can hear him because I see the little bars going when he makes noise. So I'm going to trace this. I'm going to turn off the screen and I'm going to go cover him up because I cannot concentrate when he gets going. And that's just the beginning, y'all. It gets much louder than that. So I'm going to be right back. We have these pieces traced. When I come back, we're going to trace these and I'm going to go cover up my bird. Okay? Let's come back here. And let's turn that off for a second. And I'll be right back. I promise. Okay, I'm back. I turned my camera off because I have my black dressy pants on. Not my blue jeans today. All right, maybe I can concentrate now. Mary Jo, that's interesting that you couldn't use it with your Mac. I don't remember seeing anything that says it wasn't Mac friendly. That's interesting. All right. Yeah, he saw me coming, Mary Jo. As soon as he heard my footsteps, he's like, oh, it's about to go down. He knew he was in trouble. All right, so I turned on the wrong camera. Let's come back here. Can you hear that wind? It's blowing everything around. Okay, we're coming back here. Focus, Lisa. Now we're going to trace these 3 shapes, right? There's the top stripe, the bottom stripe, and part of the hanger. You can see it goes by pretty quickly, right? Even with me being distracted. And this is just proof, y'all, that you don't have to have a cutting machine, right? Now I'll tell you, my cutting machine, even though there's an extra little step, right, of getting the file sent over and all that stuff, What's nice for me in the cutting machine, I'm trying not to waste too much of this, is that it cuts out the applique perfectly. And if you have shaky hands like I do, then that's lovely. But although it's been a hot minute since I did any projects with applique words on them, those are some of my favorite projects to do. And if you're trying to cut out intricate applique, a cutting machine, whether it be a Cricut or a Scan and Cut, is lovely. But this is just proof that you don't have to have one, right? Applique is sort of my jam. It's my favorite quilting technique. And so for me, it was worth the investment of getting the Scan and Cut. Now you notice I'm going to make a little note, because once you cut out both of these stripes, they kind of look the same, but one of them is slightly thicker than the other. So the one that says bottom, I just wrote myself a little note so I don't get them confused. Yeah, I was sitting there, I came to the computer, I had 20 minutes to go, and I was like, well, let me open up my phone and I'll start watching some of these videos. And they were not the best videos for me to watch before streaming live. They were of military people coming home from deployment and surprising their families. And I cry too easily to be watching those kinds of videos before I stream live on YouTube. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. So my voice is a little off. That is why. But that 20 minutes just flew by like that. Okay, so there we go. There's all my applique pieces traced, right? It would have gone faster had I not been chit-chatting or distracted by the bird. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to separate all these pieces, because I'm going to use different colored fabric for the circles that go on the trivet. So I have that piece there. And let me get this iron warming up. Here are my hanger pieces, and I'm going to use a different color of fabric for those. And believe me, I have a whole container of all these little scraps of HEATNBOND, because this stuff, it's not free, y'all. I save all these bits, especially if you do lots of applique. Sometimes you just need a little piece, right? So save all your little bits and pieces. And here are my stripes. And let me just trim that up just a little bit. All right, so there's my stripes. We're going to set that aside. And this will go in my little scrap bin for HEATNBOND. And this is a good chunk left over, right? So we're not going to throw that away either. All right, and so then once you have this taped together and you've traced your applique, we're ready for the fun part to begin, right? We can just move this right on over to the side. Dawn says, I love applique. Me too. Darlene said those videos make her blubber like a baby. I know. I was like, I can't believe I'm... Lisa, why are you watching this before you have to go on YouTube? I know better than that. So before we actually move on with this template, since we've already started tracing the applique, let's go ahead and fuse those pieces to the fabric and get that cut out and out of the way, right? And then we can start working with this. And once we start working with that, this project's going to come together really quick, okay? So let's come on over here. I have the red fabric. Actually, I have all this stuff here. I just piled it up on my little pressing table there. All right, so this is the fabric I'm going to use for my stripes. And it's not Christmassy, but it's red. This is actually fabric left over from my Lone Star quilt. So with the HEATNBOND, it has the paper side, right? And it has a bumpy, which you're not going to be able to see too much, a bumpy side. That's the adhesive. So we trace the design on the paper smooth side. And then when we fuse it to the fabric, we're going to fuse it to the back side of the fabric. This fabric, it's hard to tell front from back, right? But you're going to fuse it to the back side of the fabric with the bumpy side facing down. So for my hanger, I'm going to use this light gray fabric, which was the closest thing I had to silver. And you'll want to read the instructions on the package for the temperature of your iron, which is kind of a lower heat, right? And for how long to press. But you don't want to overheat this HEATNBOND LITE, that's for sure. The adhesive pretty much just sucks into the fabric, and then your pieces do not stick when you fuse them in place. I'm going to pre-press this fabric. That light coming in is so bright, isn't it? Perfect. I did not plan that at all, but look how perfect that fits. All right, so there's all my applique pieces fused. We're going to come back over here and chit chat as I cut them out. Which I didn't bring my little cutting mat over, or else I'd probably attempt to cut these out with my rotary cutter. But at this point, we're going to cut out our pieces directly on the traced line. Peggy got a haircut today. This should go by pretty quickly though, because they're very simple shapes. The wind is just a blowing. I imagine the leaves will be pretty bare after today. So there's one little decoration for our Christmas ornaments. Cutting, cutting, cutting. Yeah, the bird knew he was in trouble as soon as he heard me get up. I was telling Betty and Jane the other day, they have the intelligence of a 5-year-old. That's really smart. He knows when he's in trouble. There's our third one. See how quick that went? Sometimes I think even though I have a scan and cut, it might just be quicker to trace and to hand cut simpler shapes anyway. By the time you import the SVG and break apart all the pieces and send the file over to the scan and cut and scan your mat and all that fun stuff, it might just be faster to cut them out by hand anyway. We slept with the windows open last night. It was lovely. I'm not looking forward to turning on the heat, I can tell you that. So there's the top of the hanger. Because my sinuses, are horrible as soon as we turn on the heat. But last night was just so nice. There's the bottom part of the hanger, and now we just have the little stripes. Peggy said, what did Poppy do? He had been quiet all day until I started talking with y'all. Then he wants to act up. I'm saving all of these little bits, y'all. So let me just trim the big parts off, and then I can cut that up. Hi, everybody. It's so great to see y'all. I want to thank y'all for hanging out with me. Now, I was thinking this morning, as I was contemplating whether I should pre-cut these pieces out or not. And I decided not to because I thought this is probably a good refresher, or for anyone who is just starting out in their quilting journey and wants to learn about applique. This is probably good information, and even though I have older videos showing this, this is what we're going to do today. So if you have friends who are just starting out learning about applique and quilting, it would be helpful to them and me, y'all, if you shared this video like on your Facebook and tagged your friends who might find this video helpful, right? It would help them and it would help me too. We're on our last piece, but see how quick that went? And the good part is, even if you cut off the lines, no one's gonna know. No one's gonna be able to tell. All right, so there are my stripes. There's my other pieces. Let's move these out of the way for a minute. There's all my applique parts that go on the top of this trivet, and I don't want to lose them. So now we're going to bring in the paper pattern, the full-size tracing template, right? And let me show you what I have here. And let's go over this for a minute. Now on the first page of the pattern, it tells you the sizes of all these pieces, right? So you need a fabric for the back side of your trivets. I'm using the same fabric for the top and the back. So it all just blends in nicely, but you could use two different fabrics, right? So the back of your trivet, the front of your trivet, right? I'm going to set this off to the side for a minute. You can use one piece or you can use two pieces of thinner quilt batting. Now I started looking through all my scraps, and unfortunately I didn't have any that were a good size to use for today, except for some black batting that I have. So I cut two pieces of this, which is Hobbs 80/20. Now because I am going to use this as a trivet, it's 80% cotton, 20% polyester, right? I prefer using an all cotton batting if I'm going to use it for a trivet, but the 20%, I'm okay with that. You could also swap this out for Insulbrite or some other kind of insulated, heat-resistant type of batting, right? But I'm going to double this up. You could use a single layer if you want, but I'm going to just show you today 2 layers of this. Yeah, let's do that. All right, so I'm going to set the batting aside, the back fabric aside. This is the fabric I want to use as the top of my trivet, okay? So I'm going to lay this with the, yes, with the right side facing down. Sometimes I confuse myself. And we're going to just lay that pattern right on top, okay? Now I'm using a regular ballpoint pen. I'm going to be tracing the outside shape of this paper pattern. That's going to be our sewing line. Now, if you're tracing with something that you're worried might bleed through your fabric, you might want to use a heat erasing pen or a chalk marker or something like that, water soluble marker. But I'm just going to be using this little gel pen. Okay. And I'm just going to go through, I'm going to just center that right on the fabric, right? Hi, honey. He's just outside my door. Y'all, our farm stand, we sell out of eggs every single day. And right now we're getting about 2 dozen eggs a day. Now I could have starched my fabric a little bit. She's a little flimsy, see that? But I didn't. So I'm just going to trace as neatly as I can right around, that pen doesn't want to work so good, right around the outside of this paper. Now the beauty about this, y'all, is this project is so easy. We're going to be sewing right on this line that we're tracing, and we're not leaving an opening anywhere along the edge to turn this project right side out. I'm going to show you how we're going to do that here in just a second. But that's always one of the things I struggle with the most, is turning my projects right side out and having a nice clean opening to close up. Like, I've always struggled with that. Not with this project. All right. Whoops, I didn't trace this little section here. All right, so there's a very fine sewing line that we're going to use to sew all these layers together. Now, before I do that, see this center circle right here? We're going to cut an opening in this fabric after all the layers are sewn, right? So that we can turn the project right side out, right through an opening right here. So this is where a window or a light pad will come in handy, because I'm just going to lay this now right underneath of here, okay? And I'm going to line it back up to my traced line. See that? It's lined up with my trace line, and I can just see where that circle is, and I'm going to trace it so we know that our applique shape is going to cover this opening right here. But we're not going to cut it yet, okay? We're just going to trace right where it goes. So see that? Our applique shape is going to go right there. But inside there will be our opening. Okay, so we've used our paper pattern. We can move that off to the side, and now we're going to create the layers of this project, right? So I'm going to lay down both layers of batting. She's a little wrinkly. She's been in a big bin for a long time. Pencil Bright, 1 layer or 2 layers of batting down first. Then you're going to pull out the fabric you want to use as the back of your trivet, and you're going to lay that with the right side facing up, just centered right on there. And now you're going to bring in your top fabric, right side facing down with your tracing facing up, right? And I'm going to pin all of these layers together so nothing is shifting around and moving. I'm going to put several little pins here and there. Here and there. Yeah, 2 dozen eggs a day. And that's with some of our girls not being old enough to lay yet. Although we think they're getting pretty close. We have a couple of Americanas that are probably really, really close to laying. And we have another couple of girls that they're probably not far off from laying yet either. No rhyme or reason, just pin all those layers. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to bring this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to just do a straight stitch, and we're going to sew right on my trace line all the way around. Okay, now I probably won't do a back stitch when I start sewing. When I make it all the way around, I'm going to pass where I started a few stitches, and then I'll do a little back stitch, and we'll be done on that part. Okay. Oh, darling, your turkeys are laying eggs. I don't know if I've ever seen a turkey egg before, but I would love to have turkeys. Laurel says her Easter eggers were late to lay compared to others. I've heard Americanas take longer to start laying too. All right, so let's come here. And my machine has gone to sleep. Let's pull her awake. You're just going to pick a straight stitch. Okay, now I have 2 layers of batting, a layer of back fabric, and the top fabric. So she's kind of puffy. So depending on how well everything is feeding through the machine, I may have to increase my stitch length. But ultimately, you want to stick with as short as possible for your materials as a stitch length that you can. That might be different on all of our machines, okay? But it's just a simple straight stitch. And you can start wherever is good for you. And we're just sewing all the way around. Yep, I can already tell, especially with this open toe foot on, that she's not wanting to feed through there very easily. So I'm going to increase my stitch length. I was at a 2.0. Let's try a 2.5 and see if things get a little bit smoother. Oh yeah, that's much better. I'm having to concentrate. I want my circle to be a nice, pretty, flowy circle. So now I think that pin might get in the way. Let's just go ahead and take that one out. Let's go ahead and take that pin out because I think it's going to be in the way. You can see when I do the curvy bits like around this hanger, I just take a couple stitches and I stop with the needle down in the machine. So if your machine doesn't have the needle down feature where it automatically just puts the needle down, when you stop, hand crank that needle down in the fabric before you start to move anything, right? But when I'm doing curvy bits, I take a couple stitches and stop and rotate my work as I'm going along. And that, even though it's not going to be perfect today, it does help give you nicer curves. Am I using a non-stick needle when you sew this? This, I forget which needle it is. I think this is just a regular Oregon needle, and I don't even remember what size it is. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. But it's not a non-stick, I can tell you that. Let's take out that pin. All right, we're coming up to where we started. Right there's where we started. All right, I'm right back to where we started. I'm going to pass that by a few stitches, then do a back stitch and just lock that in there. Okay, and I only got poked by the pins just a couple times, turning all that around. Let's come back here. And we can take all these out. It kind of looks like it's going to rain. One, two. Ow. See, there I go again. All right, so once you have sewn all the way around there, before I even cut that out, I'm going to go ahead and trim all this extra up, right? If you have pinking shears, those would work good. I'm just going to use regular scissors, and I'm going to cut, leaving a small little seam allowance there. Yep, it looks like it's gonna rain. Can y'all believe it's already November? Already. Is it just me, or is this whole year just flown by so fast? See how small that little seam allowance is? Let's get rid of that. Can y'all hear my neighbor's rooster? I know that's their rooster because it's coming from across the street. We're like the little chicken community down here. Everybody has chickens. Let me get rid of this. There we go. And then I can come in here and just get around the little hanger section. Carefully without snipping those little stitches, Lisa. Now we have a couple little points, inward points right here and here. So if you come back in and you just do a couple little clips carefully without cutting that stitch line, you might find that you'll get less puckering once you turn this right side out. Although I'm using 2 layers of batting, so I'm kind of expecting some kind of pulling in this area, but snipping the seam allowance does help. I'm just going to do a couple little snips right in that V section. That should help. Carefully, Lisa. That would be horrible if I cut the stitching while I'm showing you. I felt like there was something else I was going to tell you today. I forgot to write it down, so now I don't remember. All right, so my little V sections are snipped right there. Now I think the trickiest part of this whole trivet, now we're going to cut this opening. So we need to pull the two fabrics away, right? Remember, we've got 2 layers of batting. Then we have our back fabric and our top fabric, and we need to separate the back fabric from the top fabric, right? And you can kind of feel it, but I'm always like double guessing myself. That feels like 1 layer of fabric, and I'm pinching everything else back here. We're going to cut a little opening right in that circle like that, and then reach through and double check you haven't messed your whole trivet up. And we're good. Now I'm going to tell you, the first trivet that I showed you today was a smaller circle, and I cut just a little opening like this, and I struggled getting that thing right side out. The second one, I enlarged that circle applique, and instead of just cutting the slit, you know what I did? I cut a circle opening that was just slightly smaller than the applique shape, and gave myself a nice big opening to turn this right side out, and it was so much easier. See that opening? Just inside that line, right? Let me grab a little pokey tool. And now we're going to pull this right side out. So I'm just going to, I can reach my whole hand in there now. I'm going to just push in that little hanger part first, right? And then everything else will follow. See how easy that is? And now we're just going to go through, and I'm going to stick my whole hand in there. And I'm going to start pushing out these seam allowances right along the edge, right? I'm just using my fingernail. If you have a harder time, if you didn't cut an opening like this, you might find like a chopstick or a little pokey tool helpful. But I'm just running my fingernail right along those seams and pushing out all the details. See that? So right along the edge. And as we flatten it out, we can just double check to see that everything is pushed out right. And now, so what you have now, because of the order that we layered everything, we have our back fabric on the back, and our batting is in the middle. And once you are satisfied pushing out all of the outside edges, we're just going to give this a quick press, right? We're going to flatten it out just a little bit. The stick is a little bit stronger than my fingernails. See how that edge just comes nice and pretty right along there? Let's heat this iron back up. And I'm just going to give this a quick little press, nice and flat. And even though I stuck my whole hand in, I haven't really overstretched that opening. See that? So it's going to lay nice and flat when we put the applique right over top of it. I'm just going to press this off camera because it's just going to take a second once the iron heats back up. Hi everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me today. She's a puffy little trivet with the 2 layers of batting in there. But there she is. See that? Nice and pretty. So now all we have left to do is to get this applique fused into place and stitch it down. So you can work at the edges to pull the paper off. Sometimes I find that I frame my edges. Even if I bend this back and the paper comes up, I find that if I mess along these edges, the edges will fray sometimes depending on the fabric you've used, right? So instead, I take a little needle and simply score that paper from the HEATNBOND on the back and tear it right off from the center out. And now I don't have to worry about fraying the edge of my fabric pieces, right? Brenda, yes, the pattern is still down in the description box. It is free through November the 4th. If you're watching this after November the 4th, 2024, the pattern is only $4, y'all. And it is in my Etsy shop. And right now, the pattern, the free version, comes with everything I'm showing you today. The tracing templates, the pattern, all that. The full version is in my Etsy shop. So if you have a cutting machine and you really want the SVG file right now, the full version, which includes the PDF and SVGs. Like when you download it today, it's going to say it comes with the SVGs, but the free version is the PDF, okay? But yes, the links are down in my description box. And if you're watching this after November 4th, just know that when I release new patterns like this, usually for the live, they are free for a certain amount of time. So if you haven't subscribed and turned on the notification, you might want to do that so that you can follow along and see when I'm coming out with new stuff, right? I do need that little paper template. Because you know what I did? I took the paper off and I had written top and bottom on them. And I paid that no mind. And now I don't know which is which. So let's just bring the paper back and compare. All right, that looks like the top. And the thicker one is at the bottom. All right. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to fuse the stripes on before we sewed it. That's why it's so difficult for me today. So you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna place them on here like this. The instructions are gonna tell you to fuse these in place before you sew around the edge of the ornament. Every week I make a boo-boo. So the pattern, before you sew, right, when you mark your little circle for turning, you can go ahead and fuse your stripes on at that point. Why did I forget that? And so when you do, you're going to sew over these edges, and that is going to be sewn into your seams. See how that finished like that? The edge is actually sewn into the side seam. So it brings out that applique right to the edge, right? And when we sew down our applique, you don't even have to worry about sewing down the sides because those are tucked into the seam allowance. But if you make a boo-boo like I just did, this is how we're going to fix it. And that's why these pieces are longer, so that you can sew them into the seam. We're going to lay all this out like so. Of course. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to bring in a little pen. And I'm going to mark myself a little cutting line. See that? Right there. Like that. Just inside that shape, like that. And just inside that shape, like that. And see how easy we fixed that? And now I'm just going to cut these pieces to fit on the top of my trivet. Wow, Lisa. All right, see how that fits now? The instructions are going to walk you through when to add the stripes so that you don't have to do this. But you know what? That does not look bad. I like that. All right, and with your hanger, this part is going to go down first, right inside that shape like that. And then the longer piece is going to sit and overlap it like so. Okay, so let's come to the iron and fuse all these pieces down. What kind of bird do I have? I have an umbrella cockatoo. We've had him since he was 6 months old, and he is getting close to 14, I believe. 13, 14. So, all right, let's just situate these nice and neat. Because everything shifted when I moved over here. All right, I think that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and just hit this with my iron before the wind comes in and blows and moves it. And just like that, we covered up the opening of our trivet. Again, we don't want to overheat the HEATNBOND. If you're ever working with HEATNBOND and your pieces aren't sticking, it's probably because you've used too much heat. Ask me how I know that. All right, we're going to let that cool off for just a second, and then we're going to sew down the applique, and this trivet will be all done. Lindsay said, yeah, but now we see how to fix the boo-boo that we might make also, yes. Oh no, Anitra. You thought it was she missed her parent-teacher conference. She thought it was, do the clocks turn back this weekend, y'all? It is so weird waking up in the morning and it is pitch dark outside. Okay. So there she is, all fused down into place. Again, I'll just bring it back, the original one. If you follow the instructions, your applique is going to come all the way to the edge and be sewn in there nice and neatly. But if you make a boo-boo like I did, you can trim it and it'll look like this version. Okay, so right now I have red thread in both the top and the bobbin area. So I'm going to go ahead and sew down the red stripes first, and then I'm going to switch over to a white thread. Even though this is a light green, it kind of looks white in the video, doesn't it? It's actually like a pale green. I don't think my fabric choice was that fantastic for this demonstration. But in person, it's a light green. But a white thread will look fine on it because it is so light. And then I can use a white thread on that. Okay. There are endless stitch possibilities, right? Depending on your machine, on your skill level. I'm always pushing you to advance or to work on your sewing skills, right? I'm always pushing you to push yourself a little bit. You could use a straight stitch. You should see the old-timey Mustang that drove by my house. You could use a straight stitch just inside the applique shape. You could do that. Just know that if you're using this as a trivet and you wash it frequently, right, the edges might fray over time. Even using the HEATNBOND LITE, although that does help it fray less, it still will fray. You could do a zigzag stitch, right? Your applique will fray a lot less if you do that. You could do a satin stitch and completely cover up the raw edge. You could use any of the decorative stitches in your sewing machine, right? But today I'm just going to do a basic zigzag stitch. On this one, let's just look at that while we're here. This one I picked, I think this was an overlocking stitch and this is a blanket stitch, but you can really see it on the back. Isn't that just gorgeous? And that's an overlocking stitch. I used it as an applique stitch. See that? And most machines have some kind of overlocking stitch. Look how pretty that is on the applique. And then a blanket stitch. Up here, I used a zigzag stitch. All right, so there's some stitch ideas to choose from. Today, I'm just going to use a simple zigzag stitch. Sue asked if you were to use Insul Bright, would you use 2 layers? I'm thinking just 1. Because that, you know, is made for heat anyway. Usually with my trivets, the reason I double up my batting is for extra heat protection because I'm just using normal quilt batting, right? So I double it up just for a little bit of extra cushion in there. But if you're using Insul Bright, that's made to endure the heat. And I think for sure you could just use a single layer. Yes, okay, fall back this weekend. Perfect. I like fall back, y'all. Call me weird, I like fall back. Even though it gets darker earlier, for some reason I just like that time. Okay, so let's switch over here. Let's choose a zigzag stitch. I'm going to tell you what my settings are that I choose. And you can start there with your machine if you want to use the same stitch. Just know that all the machines are different. You could test it out on a scrap piece of fabric and see what you think, right? Let's start here. Before I tell you what it is, let me just, because I have some thickness here. Right now it's a 2.5 with the width and a 1.4 with the length. I don't know if I need to increase that or not. This is kind of thick, so let's see how it goes. That seems to be behaving nicely. So we're going to go with it. 2.5 and 1.4 for the length for me. I'm going to stop right on the outside of that point. It might be hard for you to see. Right on the outside. I'm stopping in the background in the black fabric, just right next to this fabric as I'm turning. Can I just say I am so glad it's Friday. I am so glad it's Friday. Now, I know you can't see because this foot is in the way, but I missed my mark of when to stop, and the needle is actually sitting a little bit further beyond where I wanted to stop. So before I move, I'm going to lift the needle up and just scoochy this trivet back over just a smidgen so I don't have an extra long stitch there, okay? It was ever so slight, but on this black fabric, I would have seen that red thread. It was a little long right there in that corner. Yeah, I'm so glad it's Friday, y'all. Now, if your machine doesn't have a where it will tie a knot on your work when you cut your thread with your machine, you might want to do a little back stitch right at the beginning and the end. See that? It tied a little knot on the back right there. All right, we're going to jump down here, and I'm going to try to go quickly through this stripe. My needle was on the wrong side. There we go. I just hit the camera, I'm sorry. I'll tell you what, it sure does look like soup weather out there, even though it does not feel like soup weather. So I'm going to just switch out this thread real quick, right? So I had red in the bobbin. Where's my thread? Here it is. And I'm going to switch over to a white thread. And I want the changes, the thread to show on the back as well. So I'm going to put some white thread in the bobbin. And then we're going to switch out the top thread to be the same. Yeah, it looks like soup weather, but it doesn't feel like soup weather, even though it's windy. It's a little warm for my taste today. And I was thinking as I was stitching that, I can't believe I totally skipped through fusing those stripes down when I was supposed to. I think it will be a miracle if I ever do one tutorial where I just did everything I was supposed to do correctly. Alright, so there's the white thread. Now what we have left to do are the circles, so I'm going to go through those real quickly. And then we're going to stitch down the hanger, and I like to start in a certain order with that, right? So I'll show you that here in just a second, but I'm going to try to go quickly around the circles. Hi everybody. Betty, you don't know how excited I was that you came to see me the other day. You have no idea. It was so good to see you and Jane. All right. Let's breeze through these little circles. Let's start with the center one, although it doesn't matter where you start, y'all. It doesn't matter which applique piece you start with. I'm going to keep the same zigzag stitch for everything on this particular trivet. Now I will say, because I've kind of geared this video towards those who are just starting out, right? With the zigzag stitch, if you can see it, my camera's probably not in the right angle, but when I stop on these circles to pivot my work, I'm stopping when the needle is in the right position in the background before I pivot, okay? And that's going to give you the nice, pretty stitches without it looking like you've skipped a stitch, okay? Alright, y'all might hear a school bus here in just a second. did it again. I started it on the wrong side. Let's just pull that right out and move. I remembered what I was going to tell y'all. Don't let me forget. I'll tell you once I'm done stitching. Remind me about my bread recipe. Okay, those of you who are going to stick around, remind me about that. I try to sew circles continuously and I just struggle with that, y'all. I'm a stop and pivot kind of sewing person. All right, we have one more circle to do. And I can already tell you the needle is in the wrong side. Let's get it over to the right. All right. Hi, Garnet. Hello, everybody. I'm going to miss y'all's comments for just a minute because we only have a little bit of applique left and I want to knock this out, right? So on this part, y'all remember the curvy part of the hanger is sitting underneath of the longer piece, right? So I'm going to start on the inside of this curve. And unlike the circles, when we stop, we're going to stop with our needle in the left-hand position because we're making a curve, what is it, a concave curve? I do have a video about that I did a long time ago. So if you're extremely new to applique and you want to see a much better shot, camera shot visually, than what I'm showing you today. You can check out that video, right? But this is a different kind of curve than this curve. So when I stop to pivot, my needle will be in the left hand position in the applique itself, okay? And I've done that over and over today. The smaller stitch length, it's hard to know if my needle's on the right or on the left. All right, so I'm going to stop and pivot. I know it's hard to see at this angle. My needle is in the applique on the left side. That's going to give you the continuous, nice little V shapes in your zigzag. Ooh. When I come down to, no, we're going to break thread here, and I'm going to skip over and stitch the outside line as well. I was getting ahead of myself. All right. Now coming along the outside edge here, that's a different kind of curve. See, we're going along the outside, we were coming back this way. So now when I stop, I'm stopping in the background and not in the applique. I hope I haven't confused you. But if you're turning your work to the right, stop with your needle in the right position. If you're turning your work to pivot to the left, make sure your needle is in the left position. And you'll want to go really slow here because there's not a lot of space right there for your foot to maneuver, right? Because there's the edge of our trivet right there. So just go nice and slow. All right, so right there is where, and it all blends together on the camera, but right where that top of the hanger tucks under, I'm going to stop my needle there, and we're not breaking thread this time. I'm just going to pivot, and we'll stitch all along this outside piece. Now let me just trim these little threads right there and right there. like I like to say, just like that, we're done. Okay, let's come over here and let's take a look, right? It's kind of hard to see the stitching unless I bring you up close like that, but then she's sort of fuzzy. But all of our applique is stitched down. You can really see it from the back, right? And that's just using the zigzag stitch for all of my different parts of applique. Of course, I need to come through and clean all my little threads, right? Now, the only other thing that you might want to do, which I didn't for this one, and I didn't for this one, but I did for my first one, is you might like the look of coming back and doing a straight stitch all along the edge, which really isn't necessary because we don't have any openings along the edge, right? So you don't really have to do that, but if you like the look of it, you could come in and do that. See how this one has that stitch? But these two do not. So I wouldn't say it's absolutely necessary, but if you like the look of that, and it does sort of flatten it down a little bit along the edges. So you might like that. You might choose to do it or not do it, right? So there she is. Wanda said, how's the Creative Crew cookbook coming along? I think I have more than a pamphlet now, a small booklet. I bet you there's maybe 9 or 10 different recipes I've gotten so far. Scroll through, scroll through. Garnet says she should be cleaning house, but here she is. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Are you going to embroider on your white circle? Well, that's an awesome idea. I hadn't even thought about it, actually. But how nice is that space? There's the school bus I was telling you about. You could do monograms on there, right? I think, wouldn't this be super cute, right? So in the picture, you see a little bit of a trivet, right? That's a good size casserole dish. It's like a 9.5 or I don't know how big that thing is. It's a square one. She fits on this trivet. But how festive and pretty would that be with a whole bunch of these ornaments on your table, right? They're not going to fit on the screen. Whoops. Have your table all lined up with little ornament trivets, right? Waiting for the hot food to come out of the oven. All which way, the little ornaments down the table or on your counter, wherever. Wouldn't that be so festive and pretty? You could do them all different colors like this, right? How special would that be to do monograms or people's names in that space? That's such a good idea. Oh, Anne's thinking of a table run. You could applique this on a table runner. Yes. Y'all are so smart. Wanda said, I wonder if it's possible to put photos in the circles. Maybe, Wanda. One thing you want to think about is how heat sensitive are the photos that you're going to use, right? If you're using this as a trivet. If it's just decoration, absolutely, right? If it's just decoration, this could just be a centerpiece on your table. Or you could hang it up on a wall or a door. I love hanging things on my fridge, y'all. It's like the perfect little unused real estate right there on my fridge. And I swap out my projects all the time. That's my way of decorating, super simple. But yeah, photos in that space would be lovely. Thank you, Mimsy. Yes, the bread recipe. Y'all, I got a phone call the other day. And do you know who it was? Let me take a sip of this water. It was the person who writes the food column for our local newspaper. And she saw my bread on Facebook. I shared a picture of my bread on our farm stand Facebook page, and she saw it. And she called me up. She's like, I would love to come do an interview with you, and if you'd be willing to give your recipe, I'd love to put it in the newspaper. And then to talk with you and Harlan about your farm stand. I'm like, yes. So she's coming next Wednesday, y'all, to do an article about my bread and our farm stand in the local newspaper. Isn't that awesome? Look how much smaller this first design I did was. See that? I like the bigger one. Isn't that exciting? I was so surprised. I was so surprised. So yeah, I'm going to make her a loaf of bread. She's not staying while I make the bread, but I'm going to get up early and I'm going to make some bread she can take home with her. And I'll print out my recipe. It's the same one I shared with y'all here on YouTube. And yeah, she wants to come talk to me about my bread. And it's not even a fancy sourdough bread or nothing, y'all. But it is delicious bread. Yeah, we were so excited about that. Okay, let me pull up this camera. Oops, there we go. I had turned it off so I could get up and close the door and cover the bird up. I am so sorry I messed up. But you know what? Sometimes things work out for a reason, right? The instructions will tell you how to finish it this way. And in today's video, I gave you an alteration way of finishing it. I think that's just as cute, don't you? Slight difference, but I think it's just as cute. So there's two different ways. And y'all should try those beets that I did yesterday. They're the same beets that I canned a few months ago, and we only had one jar left. I was down to the wire because I would tell you what, I can sit and eat a can of, I say a can, it's a pint-sized jar of pickled beets by myself. But when I think of snack foods, like there are so much worse things I could be eating, right? So pickled beets, that's not bad. Plus beets are great for your blood pressure. Anyway, we were down to one jar, so I canned all those beets yesterday. It took forever because they were tiny, but we got 18 jars. So I'm good now for beets for a while. Yeah, Darlene, I did not tell her when she was on the phone with me. What's really cool, okay, so what's really cool is she's lived here her entire life. She used to come to this house when the previous owners lived here. And she knows all the history about this house and the surrounding areas. And she told me she would tell me the history, like we didn't know this, but there have always been chickens here on this property. I did not know that. I didn't know the previous owners had chickens or the people before them. I didn't know that, but she says there's always been chickens here, which is so fascinating to me. Like, that's funny. So yeah, she's going to give me a history lesson of our house and our street, you know, this area. because she used to live across the street. So I am super excited. But yeah, when she was on the phone, she was telling me all that. I didn't tell her, you know, I'm a quilter and I have a YouTube channel. I didn't tell her any of that stuff. It's kind of hard to miss though if you walk past the living room into the dining room and the door's open, you see my space. I just casually walk her by the door. By the way, you can tell the food column to follow me on YouTube. Thank you, y'all. Yes. Yes, we were excited. Heather said, I see King Star Thread. Oh, you see that? Actually, it came here yesterday, but I was so just tired. We didn't even check the mail yesterday. Can you believe it? I had a couple little packages in there, but Donna sent me some metallic threads. And the only reason I didn't use them today is because I don't have a metallic needle. So you can bet your bottom dollar what I'm getting next so I can have fun playing with those. I really wanted to use them today, but let me get some experience with them first. I mean, right? I already made one mistake in today's video. But yes, metallic threads. Donna sent me those. Yes, pickled beets. Delicious. Has anybody made a salad dressing from the juice that's left over from the pickled beets? Have you done that? I can just drink that juice. I drink pickle juice. I love it. A bird just hit my gutter. I hate it when they do that. They fly into the windows. One just flew into the gutter, and I'm not sure if he's okay. I saw him fall to the ground. I hate it when they do that. That's so sad. Della, you're gonna do it this way. Okay, good. Then I did it for a reason, didn't I? King Star is the best. I've been looking for black. Can't find it. I'm excited to try it. It has been a hot minute. It's been a long time since I used metallic thread. But the way I used metallic thread would be sewing down applique. I loved it for that. But it's been a really long time. And I don't even know that I've had metallic thread since I've had my YouTube channel. But we were all in a Zoom together. I believe it was during the Patreon quilt retreat. Is that when it was? Donna was using metallic thread to stitch out her ornaments. And it was so pretty. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to try it with my embroidery, because I've never used it doing machine embroidery. Do you know what I'm saying? I've only used it stitching things by hand, like applique. Yes, I'll have to watch the sodium, Quiltmaker. I can drink some pickle juice, I will tell you that. Do you need a special needle? Evidently, you need a metallic needle. I know, in nature, poor little birdie. I'm scared to go over there and look to see if he's okay. Lance wants to know if I've ever made pickled eggs. Harlan loves them. I do not like them at all, but I'm planning on making him some because he loves them. I've never made them before. But But I do want to make him some because he loves them. Can you hear that, Rooster? Kathleen said, many times after appliquing, I will put a very thin line of freight check to reduce the fraying. That's a good tip. That's a good, thank you for sharing that. That's good to know. I've got some freight check somewhere around here. Oh, Ann says I just used my 7511 for metallic thread. Then maybe I can get started this weekend. Maybe. I'll try it and see. Oh, on the beet pickle eggs, add hot sauce. Garnet says, I love pickled beets. What is good is to heat them up. I did not know that. And to thicken them with cornstarch. I might have to try that this weekend. Her mom always called them harvest beets. Well, it can't hurt to try them. I might have to do that this weekend. I'm going to tell you what, and I just used, okay, so I did a slight variation, but the Ball Book recipe for pickled beets, I followed that. But I always add like a little, like maybe tablespoon of pickling spice in with it. So the Ball Book says to use cloves and cinnamon stick, and I add a little dash of pickling spices in with that. There's just something about it. I don't know. It just adds a little something extra to it. And they are just so delicious. And they were really easy to eat after I had my teeth done. So there's that. Anitra, you are so funny. Faye says, I love beets and tahini sauce. I never thought of that. All right, I have to write a couple of these things down before we go, okay? And then I do have to go because I have a couple more things I have to do before supper time today. Since I canned beets all day yesterday, now I'm struggling today to catch up on all the little things I had to do for work. Well, let me write this down. Okay, so heat with cornstarch. I want to try that. And hot sauce with the pickled eggs. I will tell Harlan because he's all into hot stuff. And beets. Well, we've pickled all of our beets. Is that okay? I didn't leave any unpickled. And tahini. Candy, you always use the pickling spice in your beets. Then I bet my beets taste just like yours. Aren't they good? Okay, y'all. I need to go finish up a couple of things, and it's Friday. I'm hoping tomorrow. I do have to work tomorrow, just a little bit. But, yeah. I forgot I have to work tomorrow, just a little bit. Anyway, I hope to see y'all next Friday. We're doing a Christmas project, but I'm not going to tell you which one we're doing yet. I'm going to leave it as a surprise. Sometimes I tell you, I know what we're doing, but I'm going to leave it as a surprise this time. But I'll be live next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Keep an eye on my channel, though, for when the thumbnail comes up. And if you're on Facebook, you might want to follow me on Facebook, too. Because sometimes I share things there first before I share it on YouTube. And you can also just follow along in my adventures here at our house. There's one more thing. Next Friday. Yeah, this is where you're going to find me. Next Friday here on YouTube. Thanks for following along, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. If you've been here during the live, thanks for hanging out with everybody. I mean, that's the real reason that I do stream on Fridays, is so we can all get together and just chit chat, right? And if you come back on the replay, please skip around if you want to. And yeah, I'll see y'all next Friday, okay? Bye.